I'd like to introduce Michael Koehl. Michael is a physicist working in the various fields of solar energy systems since 1977. For more than 25 years, Michael has worked with the Fraunhofer Institute for Solar Energy Systems with the focus on characterization and service life analysis of materials, components, and systems used for solar energy conversion, including outdoor exposure testing and development of accelerated service life procedures. Michael serves as a coordinator of national and international IEA solar heating and cooling in the European Union projects also. Please welcome Michael Koehl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the kind introduction, and I thank God and especially ISAM for inviting me to give the possibility to show you another glance in our work in IEA solar heating and cooling. So Daniel focused very much on the local area and will come back, so he has a break now. And I will go back to good old Europe and talk a little bit about our needs in solar energy. For example, what's the future of solar thermal energy supply? So as Ken Guthrie already told you this morning, about 40% of the primary energy consumption in Europe is dedicated to heating. So heating and sun is something which goes very nicely together. So we can, of course, reduce some heating demand by better energy efficiency and conservation and insulation of the buildings. But besides the heating, domestic hot water needs remain at least. So that's the reason for still focusing on this point. So what's going on in future? So we had already a lot of insight in political border conditions in the next decades. And so a lot of scenarios are focusing on 2050 now because it's such a nice number. And it's also targeting 85% less CO2 emission. So as you can see here, we will cover then a majority, 2/3 about maybe, with renewable energy sources, and only some smaller part of fossil fuel remains. And one part of this renewable energy is low temperature solar thermal, here on the second place. So it's still a lot to be a good business, and therefore we try to check how to get there, how to reach this target of this reduction in 2050 and also this market share for solar thermal. So if we look a little bit more in detail about the solar thermal scenarios, you can see here one part is dedicated to solar heat integration in industrial processes, which is also a big subject in the solar heating and cooling program, namely Task 49 and the upcoming new one. Then we have the large solar heating and cooling system in the district heating networks. There's Task 55 going on, dealing with this very important issue. And the rest is the low decentralized low temperature solar thermal supply, which needs to be looked a little bit on more in detail. It will be part of a renewable energy mix in future. So you can see here all the nice toys which you also could see at the Gord side. Wind energy, PV, combined heat and power, and solar thermal, and all have to work together. So what does that mean for solar thermal issues? It could look like this simulation for a place in Germany shows for some future in 2050. You can see here as a red line the energy demand for a couple of days. And you can see here the contributions from the different energy sources. So in Germany we have a lot of on and offshore wind energy. These are the blue ones here. And we have a lot of solar energy, namely PV here. And you can see here during noon, usually the energy supply from the renewables exceed the needed energy. So that addresses, of course, some storage issues. So what to do with this surplus energy? And usually the people say, okay, let's use it for heating. Let's dump it into our water heat store. And that's something which is also addressed by a IEA task here. But for us in the solar thermal branch, it causes, of course, some problems, because what happens when this surplus energy would be sufficient for heating? Then we have a bad market share. But this simulation was from summertime, so we have winter in Europe, and during winter time we have problems with solar energy in both cases. So finally, it's a question of the costs. So here I've drawn the cost development in the past until 2012 for solar collectors in Europe. And you can see here a typical learning curve, a decrease, which goes down to about 70 euros per square meter. And it was more or less a decrease of 4% per year. It's not very exciting, but steady. And how does it continue? So let's consider a typical Central European domestic hot water system. As you can see here, it's about 5 square meters collector area and a 300-liter water tank as a buffer. And so in 2012, you had to pay about 5,000 euros for the whole system. In 2015, 3 years later, you still have to pay nearly the same price, in spite of having got some progress in R&D and production efficiency. And that's a little bit strange. And this number is much too high. If you want to compete against this photovoltaic systems delivering the same amount of energy, but as electricity, as here the solar thermal energy, then you have to be clearly cheaper than 3,500 euros. Otherwise, it would not be feasible to install a solar thermal system instead of a PV system for heating purposes. And that's more or less the solution. If we consider what are the real costs for the hardware, that means for production and materials and designing all that stuff, we come to less than 50% of the end user price, and the rest is consumed by installation. So the installation of a solar thermal system is not so straightforward as for a PV system. And the sales structures in Europe are not so optimized for selling it cheaply, installing it cheaply, because this is the money which is then used from the installer for surviving. So, and maybe they need it, because the systems are not very installer friendly. So they spend a lot of time and want to be paid for that. If you look at the Combi-system. That means a system which is also used for heating purposes. They are usually a little bit larger in area. Here, these numbers are based on 11 square meters. That's an even bigger system as an example. Then you can see that finally the shares for the different cost contributions are pretty similar. So the production cost itself are about 40%, and all the other ones are not really acceptable. So that's why we started with task 54, price reduction of solar thermal systems. And we want to go for a target of 40% reduction along the whole value chain in order to be competitive against PV. So, and our ways to do it are simplified component design, simplified system design, standardized subcomponents. Not every company has their own ones. Innovative cost-efficient materials and low production costs, easy to install systems, reduced maintenance operation costs, and improved marketing measures. You can see it sounds a little bit different compared to the usual R&D program, where you want to increase the efficiency, you want to improve the production, and here the main goal is to get to something which maybe suffers a little bit in efficiency, but allows cheap installation, because the installation is more than 50% of the end user price, and that has to be cut. So within this task 54, we have a certain substructure. I want to show it to you in order to see what kind of topics we are addressing. So market success factors and cost analysis is one part which need to be done to be more efficient in work. System design, installation, operation, maintenance, that's all the cost reduction potential. And the same with cost-efficient materials, production processes and components. And the important thing is also to talk to the manufacturers, to talk to the installers, to convince them that it's also for them, because of continuous market share, a big issue to support us, to come with us to solutions for the future. So for the beginning, and we are more or less in the beginning phase after 1 year still, we have to define some typical systems, depending of course on the country where it is used, which then serves as a benchmark for further improvement. We have to prove that it's working what we want to do. And that's one way. The second brick in this wall is a cost tool definition. So at the end of the day, we have to compare the levelized cost of heat coming out of the system and compare it with the state of the art, with our optimized system, and with PV, of course. So, and when we want to have a look on the political, legal, and social boundary conditions, which maybe could be a help in changing a little bit for facilitating more solar thermal systems in Europe. And we want to learn from market success factors in order to promote solar thermal more. So that's Subtask A. In B, and here's a list of different systems we want to consider as the benchmark, so you shouldn't read it yet. And in B, we are more looking for the technical optimization, to find standardized component, to look for the actual manufacturing costs and the after-sale costs, and optimize these reference systems I just showed in order to come to this 40% price reduction. Subtask C focuses on cost-efficient materials, production processes, and components. And here, for example, we want to continue a little bit, partly our work from task 39, polymeric materials for solar thermal applications. This is a direct conversion of oil into future energy in this case, and could help for mass-produced parts to come down in the costs. So I just want to refer to this literature sources here, this book and this web address for further reading for interested peoples. And the last point, industry liaison and dissemination and information, all are obliged to get into contact with installers, with producers, with manufacturers, and with public media, and tell what we are going to do. So the last action we did was to set up a Twitter account in order to promote our progress more closely. So you can find it on our website and see what's coming up. So next would be a newsletter which will be submitted soon, where we bring our latest news. 8 countries are working together, and you can see here the weak point, mainly Europeans. So we are looking for some others which have more favorable conditions for solar thermal energy supply, like here in Qatar or Gulf region. So please join us and tell us what you need. So finally, I want to show you one example where these row houses are completely equipped at this south-oriented roof side with polymeric collectors as a good example how you can do it in a nice way, in an efficient way, and you could do it even in Norway. So thank you very much for your attention, and